So good morning to everyone. A very beautiful day outside, sunshine, and we're very fortunate to have Charlie with us today. And Charlie's the National Coordinator of Brahma Kumaris Australia, and his topic is the wisdom of love. And that's very suited to him because not only is he very wise, but he's very loving. And we all take a lot of benefit from him coming here to spend some time with us. So I also wanted to tell you that there's a program on tonight with Sister Shivani, and it's called Calm in Chaos. And if you've got the link, you can just click on the link. But if you haven't, please email us or phone us and we'll send you the link because it'll be a beautiful program. So now, the wisdom of love.
Thank you so much, Sally. And excuse my throat. I think I should, or could say that Sally also is the embodiment of love and is loving to everyone, whoever they are. And I think that so many of you who watch this have been to the Blue Mountains. You know Sally, and I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. She's loving and accepting to everybody. You know, I think in all languages, I don't think there's been anything written more about than the subject of love. In all languages, I don't think there's been anything sung about as much as the subject of love. And in all languages, I don't think there's been anything talked about as much as the subject of love. Because I think in human life, love is the pinnacle experience. Love is the highest experience. And really, most people find that when the sacred space of the mind, that fragrance of love fills each corner of my mind. Observe how you feel. You feel so easy, accepting, relaxed, and peaceful. Some years ago, about 10 years ago, I attended the World Parliament of Religions in Melbourne, which was an extraordinary event. About 5,000 leaders of all different faiths from all corners of the world. It was so wonderful. And there was a rabbi who spoke in one of the sessions, and he said there's three things. There's information, knowledge, and wisdom. He said of himself, I have a lot of information, a little knowledge, and no wisdom. I think he was being very humble, actually. But he said, you know, when you look, how much information is there out there? There's so much information about love. You Google the word love, you get billions of results, not millions, billions of results. There's a lot of knowledge, philosophy, debate, ideas about love. But when I live a life of love, when I practice love, when my face glows with love, when my eyes radiate love, that's the wisdom of love. And I think probably the most beautiful life is when I express genuine love. 90% of the time, I will reap the fruit of those loving feelings. And many of you know Daddy Janki, who only 3 weeks ago passed away at 104. I knew her for 45 years, and she was an extraordinarily loving person. And I remember her once saying, you know, she was never really educated, never went to school, just for a few years, but all her wisdom was learnt from practical life. And she once said that the ultimate result of all knowledge is to be completely loving. I love that when I absorb truth into the core of my being, how does truth come out? Do I give lectures as a big intellectual? No. When truth is in the core of my being, it's expressed through my eyes, through my face, through my attitude, through my behavior. and I really become incredibly loving. And we're all on a spiritual journey, and the whole of the spiritual journey is this gentle self-learning, this gentle self-observation, observing myself and learning to transform myself, to return to my true self, who I really am. And my observation of me, because we know ourselves best of all, is that when my heart is full of love, instantly I'm different. I feel so easy, so relaxed, so calm, so self-accepting. My sense of self-respect is higher, and my attitude towards others is definitely more kind and respectful and generous and compassionate, I would say. But equally, if my heart lacks love, the observation of me is the mind can never rest. Something's missing in life. The most essential need of the human spirit is not there. The mind starts to search and seek, the agitated mind, searching, seeking, looking, because until it finds that love, it can't really taste a quality of peace in our mind. And many times I think that there's so many crises in our world. At the moment we have the virus, but we have numerous environmental crises. Look at our country. Look at Australia just a few months ago. We had fires like we've never had in the whole history of the country. There's so many crises, but to me, probably the greatest crisis at the moment is relationships. Because love is essential for a quality human life. Even sometimes I think the first human right should be the experience of being fully loved. But so many people don't feel that love, feel empty of that love. And I often ask the question, if you ask most people what's given you the most happiness in life, they will say family, relationships. Next question, what's given you the most sorrow and unhappiness? Is it the same answer? I think it is the same answer. And so relationships is intrinsic to the human spirit. It's a part of our DNA to connect and belong. And the spiritual life is learning about myself, learning about God and a relationship with God, so that I reform how I connect with love, with others, and share love. And yet to me, it seems harder and harder for people to have these quality of relationships today. And for the first time in human history, we're watching the breakdown of the family. The family is the social support unit that nurtures the heart with love, belonging, care, respect. And yet, in so many countries, including this one, I think, less than 50% of people live in a traditional family. And so often we're not getting that nurture and support. We're also observing mental illness, perhaps a rise in mental illness. And there's so many reasons for that. But once again, Daddy Janki, I remember her once saying that the main reason for mental health issues is two things: a lack of true love in this life, or a lack of true love in a past life. I find that when the human spirit is loved, we're balanced, we're just relaxed. But when we don't receive love, it distorts my perception. And I start to read into relationships and things a whole lot of stuff which really isn't there. But often I feel that we need a certain quality of love in life, and a true quality of love. We do receive love, but maybe it's not of the quality that we really need to have that fulfilling experience. And my experience is that when my heart feels full, there's that contentment, that lovely feeling, I have what I need. I don't really need anything else. I'm satisfied. And it's only love that can give that full sense of satisfaction. Because if we don't receive that quality of love, what sort of love do we receive? The first type of love we all receive is conditional love. And this is the love that often comes with a contract and a subcontract and a sub-subcontract, you know. I'll love you, but you have to do what I like. So if you do what I like, you'll receive my love. But if you don't do what I like, you won't receive my love. So it is love, but it's love that manipulates and controls. And unfortunately, that is a very common form of love today. Or there's selfish love. And what this really means is sometimes people feel so empty inside. All I can really think of, and it's not even conscious, is you loving me. And sometimes such people have such high expectations of what you should be giving to me, and no one can fulfill that. And so they're permanently disappointed. They're permanently disappointed with other people. No one can live up to my expectations. They think it's other people, but actually it's their own neediness, which is not allowing them to really experience that quality of love. Or even there is what I would call superficial love. And I think this is the love of all the sort of soap operas and the glossy magazines, you know, that you just throw in head over heels in love with another person. But I once read a book called The History of Love. I'm not even, to be honest, I'm not sure how you write a book about the history of love. But this person maintains that those romantic feelings of love only last 6 months or a year, and then love takes on deeper and deeper dimensions. But some people feel, if I'm not really feeling that sort of romantic feeling, I'm not in love. And so people recycle relationships one after the other, and then lose a lot of confidence that I can be, you know, really loving. There's even another form of love. There's conditional love, there's selfish love, there's superficial love, there's dependent love. Dependent love means that because I can't love myself, I depend on you loving me. And that often creates a love-hate relationship. I love you because you're giving me support, but I dislike it because I've lost my freedom. I sort of feel confined. I'm just controlled. I'm not the free spirit I would really love to be. So we all receive love, but often it's a polluted form of love. And I think in our memory track, we remember a quality of love. And you may remember there is an American psychiatrist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was an extraordinary woman, and she used to go around the world doing workshops about grief. And often she used to say that we hold a lot of grief in our hearts. And when there's even a little loss, let's say just a little loss of something in my life, this overwhelming sadness comes inside of us. And she often used to say that the real sadness is that at some point in time we knew perfect love. We have this memory of this perfect love, maybe that love with God, and we've lost it somewhere. And so when we lose a family member, when we lose even a job, when we lose something, this sadness comes because somewhere I've disconnected from that perfect experience of love. And so the wisdom of love is really the path of spirituality. It's this incredible process where I come back and rebuild my loving nature. And the first wisdom of love says to have a loving relationship with myself. And I'm absolutely amazed in this world where we're so educated. It seems to be the hardest thing to do. Emotional intelligence tells us to have loving relationships with others. But spiritual intelligence says to have a loving relationship with myself. The first relationship in life is with me. And really, the more I go on in my life, my observation is when this relationship is unhealthy, it pollutes absolutely everything. And I'm convinced this world, this dysfunctional world we live in, where there's dysfunction almost all levels of life, the seed is the dysfunction between me and me. If the first relationship of 7.4 billion human beings is dysfunctional, it creates this dysfunctional society and dysfunctional world in which we live. And that's why I think when you listen to the Brahma Kumaris, every single time we will talk about this first relationship in life with myself as the eternal soul. And this is like the first step in meditation. The first step to healing is to re-establish a relationship, not with myself as a temporary body, but with myself as a soul. And sometimes I think there's 4 visions on the soul. There's the vision of the world, and the world will judge and label you in 1 second. They will see your body and all its labels, and they will make a decision about you. We've all done it, right? How long does it take to judge another person? 1 second, 0.1 of a second. It's so quick. The second vision is the vision of others. And I think because people have very little self-love, then the vision is often quite critical. It's not positive a lot of the time. So we've grown up, most of us grown up with sort of used to quite critical vision on us. The third vision is the vision of myself on myself. And I would say this is the most powerful influence on our lives, because when I have this critical vision of myself, when I look down at myself, when I have no respect for myself, and then this is really the quality of life which I tend to lead. And the fourth vision is the vision of God on the soul. And actually, I would say that's the real vision, because God sees my original nature, sees who I really am. I've become conditioned, and my ego has made me dislike myself. There's a deep relationship between love and ego. The more ego, the less lovable I am. And the role of ego is that it makes you feel separate. Ego will talk in your head. Ego will tell you you don't belong, people don't love you, people don't want you. You are convinced, but actually I'm being deceived by my own ego at that time. And so my personal experience is the spiritual journey, is this incredible journey of learning to love myself as a soul. And when you step on this journey, you realize you hold these deep beliefs about yourself. The belief that's been ingrained in me so deeply, I am not good enough. I am inferior. And that is so powerfully etched in my psyche. You know, to break down this belief takes a lot of effort and self-realization. The belief that I'm not lovable, that others don't really love me. So even if others show me love, I can't feel it, because my mindset, my perception is that people won't love me or like me. And so often I have to crack open these beliefs that have been etched in my psyche to really learn that the original nature of the soul is pure. The original nature is absolutely lovable. And when I learn to really love myself, this is the first major step on the journey to self-healing. And I remember once one of my friends was telling me that he lived in Toronto in Canada. And if you've actually been there in winter, I don't know whether anyone of you out there, it's pretty cold, minus for months. And snow and things like that. And he said he was on a train, and in the middle of winter, and in the middle of winter, everyone's rugged up and all the faces are long and drawn and a bit, wintry looking, if I can say. And he said one day he was traveling on the train and a young woman hopped on with a newborn baby. And he said that as soon as all the faces, these long, depressed looking faces, saw this little baby, love emerged in their faces. And we were discussing how when we see that which is innocent, that which is authentic, that which is pure, it emerges love inside of us. And actually, spirituality is finding that part of me that is innocent, that is pure, that is authentic and totally lovable. And when I understand that is my intrinsic nature as a soul, I begin to have a genuine relationship of love with myself. There is no more important thing in life, I would say, than to rebuild my self-respect and my self-value. And perhaps another way of describing this whole spiritual journey is step by step, healing this first relationship in life. Because when it's healed, it'll affect my physical, my relationships, and every single part of my life. So the first wisdom of love says to have a loving relationship with me. The second wisdom says to have a loving relationship with God. And I actually grew up in Melbourne, and my family wasn't a very religious family, but when I was 12, they sent me off to confirmation classes in the church. And after a few months, I was having dinner with my mum and dad and my brothers and sisters. And they asked me, "What have you learnt?" So as a very wise, knowledgeful 12-year-old, I said, "I think I'm an atheist," which wasn't what they expected. And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, it seems to me that God's just a punishing, authoritarian, judgmental sort of person, That was the impression I got. Right or wrong, that was the impression I had. So for that period of my life, I sort of thought, I don't really want to know God. When I went to university, I was still searching a lot, and I decided to take time out of university. And for nearly 2 years, I wandered the world, which I often see as my education. And I lived in so many religious communities with Buddhists and Sikhs and Taoists and Muslims and yogis and Hindus and all sorts of groups. And I became an agnostic. I said, I don't really know who God is, but I'd be interested. But my real interest was, how do you experience God? And how do you experience God's love? Everyone talks about God, but it all sounds very intellectual and theoretical to me. I was young. And then I settled in London. And while I was in London, I was visiting all the different religious groups there, which I love because all have a lot to give, but still this quest to probably somehow, if there is God, how do I connect and experience? And when I went to the Brahma Kumaris, they just taught me that I'm a soul, this point, this incredibly subtle point, so subtle it has no physical size. It sort of sits in the forehead. I am the soul. God is the soul too. Just an equally subtle point, so subtle. And this image is common to all religions. The image of light, a non-physical image of light, is probably the most common symbol for God in all religions. And that meditation is linking. It's not just sitting, believing or praying to some concept. It's actually connecting. It's just like you out there. If you have children or you have parents or loved ones, each time you think of them, they pick up your thought. You can be on the other side of the world and you can think of somebody, they will pick up your thought. Or while you're listening to this talk now, Someone pops in your head. They just pop in your mind. You just think, oh, I've just thought of them, but you've actually picked up their thought message. Thoughts have an energy. And actually, when I begin to become soul conscious, there is a real energy link with the one relationship that's permanent. And this one is an ocean of unlimited, divine, and absolutely pure love. I can live stream this divine love right into the core of my absolute being. And really, I think there is no higher human experience than this. And this is really what meditation is. And in this world today, I often think there's three sources of love. There's myself, there's God, and there's others. As we were saying, not much love do I give to myself. Often we give ourselves a bit of a beating, or we're so self-critical. God, I think people have a lot of faith in God, but do we really taste love? You know, till this day, 80% of the world's population believes in God. So I find quite amazing. But do we really feel loved, intimacy, closeness? Not many, I don't think. So my one source of love is my family and friends. And if there's some conflict or upheaval, you know, or a loss of a family member, my whole life goes into chaos. And this is why, you know, in the wisdom of love, there's two steps that really bring love back into my life. To have a loving relationship with myself as a soul and a loving relationship with God as the Supreme Soul. And these days, to make it absolutely simple, all I have to do is remember the Supreme Soul, remember God. And when I do, I remember that form of light, which you see here, because remembering is so natural. And each time you remember, you connect. And each time you connect, you're influenced. And each time you're influenced, you have a feeling inside. So if you observe, if you remember God, the ocean of love, you're influenced by that love, and your mind has that sweet feeling of feeling loved. And that's when you feel, I'm content, I have what I need. But if you remember a family member, you may have a good relationship, you remember them, and you have that good feeling love. But if you remember a family member, there's a bit of conflict, a bit of difference, a bit of a problem. Instantly, the influence is negative and you feel tense inside. And if you observe your inner world, at every moment, the thread of my intellect is remembering a person, connecting, influence. Remembering a scene, connecting, influence. Remembering the past, connecting, influence. Unfortunately, a lot of them are negative. So then we wonder why I'm not happy. Actually, if I'm not happy, I've got to ask myself the question, what am I remembering? What am I remembering? And really, if I remember God, the ocean of love, and if I start to do this in a natural way, it's a natural relationship. I don't have to be religious at all. It's just the lover of the soul. As you walk down the street, as you do the gardening, as you cook your meal, you're suddenly putting yourself under the most positive influence you can. And then you keep downloading this love into your life. And this love will then start to radiate through your eyes, come through your face, come through your words. This is the most beautiful life. And this is really what spirituality is about. So the first wisdom of love is to have a loving relationship with myself. The second is to have a loving relationship with God. The third, I often feel, is to love that which always exists. Now that may sound a little bit philosophical, but when I love anything temporary, you know, when I become dependent on anyone or anything temporary, you know, I build fear and insecurity into my life. Spirituality is to to be sustained by the relationship with the divine, the relationship with myself, love people, love life, interact with life. But as soon as I become dependent on anything temporary, I am deceived. And I am starting, in my life to observe that the reason we feel stressed about so many things is because we become dependent on temporary things. And then the fear I build into my life of losing those things is huge. The fourth wisdom of love says to be truly loving, I have to be detached. To be truly loving, I have to be detached. Now, detachment usually has a very, very bad reputation, because detachment, a lot of people feel, is being cool, aloof, disconnected. But no, accurate detachment is to be very close, very kind, good communication, but uninfluenced by. And I think that, to be truly loving, I have to be detached, because when I'm attached, I am attached, I'm influenced. I'm influenced by people's behavior. But when I'm detached, I can love them in a good mood, but I love them when they're not really in a good mood. This is spiritual power. And so actually detachment and love go together. Detachment protects my ability to be a loving person. Because when I'm detached, I can keep loving, keep loving. When I'm attached, I love 1 minute, I'm unhappy the next. I love this one, I don't love this one. I become very selective in a sense. And so I would say detachment is a huge wisdom. The fifth wisdom of love really says that I need to learn how to forgive. Forgiveness is a wonderful quality. And forgiveness is letting go all the conditions in my heart that stop me being loving. Each time I can't forgive, I suppress my love. You've done that, I'm not going to love you. You're like that. You've done this, I'm not loving you. Who suffers? Me. I just stop all my love because you've done this and you've done that. I hold all these things. But actually, forgiveness is one of the greatest acts of spiritual love, because I stop punishing myself. When I can't forgive, I punish myself internally with these, this has happened and that's happened. But when I release it, it's like a release valve where I can feel peace, I can remember a few years ago, something was influencing me, affecting me. And I observed it, and I was holding on to a position. I was I was holding on to my view, my position. And I saw that I was creating some sort of stress in me. And I just let it go. And I just couldn't believe just how I just let this thing go with this person. And it just freed me completely. And I really think that it's important to forgive. And then some say, well, how can we forgive when their behavior was really bad, was even sometimes vicious, what people do? And I think it's possible to say, I didn't agree with what happened. I don't agree with that behavior. This is not my values, but for my parent, I'm going to let go and move on. Because really, the more I hold on to this anger, this hurt and this past, I punish myself. And unfortunately, I've given meditation classes to people for 45 years. Many people I've heard, they're 60, 70, 80 years old. Something's happened to them, in their teen years or something, and they've held on to it. And sometimes they feel bitter and angry about life. Whereas to let go, where do I get the power? In this loving relationship with God. I find that when you really feel loved, you think, do I really need to hold on to this? Can't I just let go? Can't I forgive people? Can't I give people the benefit of doubt? Sometimes we're just so critical of other people. And that doesn't really allow me to step into my own self-respect too. The next wisdom of love, and I think it's number 6, but I may be wrong, is if you give love, you will receive love. And my observation of the happiest people, they keep giving love. And they keep giving love to even people who don't give it to them. But the law of karma says that you will mainly receive love from people. The law says, if you want love, give it. If you want respect, give it. If you want cooperation, give it. If I give, I will receive. Thank you. Just a little drink break. Cheers, everybody. And another wisdom of love from my life experience is accept difference. Allow people to be different. Sometimes out of fear and insecurity, we want people to behave according to my rules, what I think they should be like. And unfortunately, this is the manipulation and control that so many people have in relationships. You behave the way I like, you're okay. You don't, you're not okay. And we're so different. I often remember my brother and his wife. They have a very big circle of friends living in Melbourne. Well, my brother's passed away now. They did have, and they used to go to dinner parties. They had lots of friends. And when they'd drive home, my sister-in-law loves to debrief on what happened at the dinner party, who said what was going on. And so my brother always had a very different view from her. And she often used to say his name was Richard. Richard, did we go to the same dinner party? Because his perception was completely different from hers. And they were a very close marriage, because we forget, there's a man here in Sydney called Hugh Mackay, who's a very interesting man who, writes a lot about all the what's happening in society, what people are thinking and feeling. And he talks about when we communicate the injection myth. We have an idea. Oh yeah, let's do this. I'll talk to so-and-so. So I speak. And I just sit back and expect you to understand what I've said. And when you say, no, I disagree, or you even react and you say, that's rubbish, we can't understand it. It's so normal to me because we forget every message will be distorted. Every message goes through your mood, your life experience, your culture. A whole lot of filters will distort that message and interpret your message. And that's why really the basis of communication is feelings, because people will often distort and confuse your words. But if the feelings of love are there, then that's okay. And in fact, they say whenever you communicate with others, that there's actually 3 layers of communication. One is what you say, the other is your face, what they call your body language, and the third is your vibrations, the feelings. And 90%, 80 to 90% of the impact of any message is nonverbal, is your face and your feelings. So when you hear the words, you get one message, but when you feel the feelings, there's a different message. Which do you trust? You always trust your feelings. So the real communication is feelings, and that's where a wise person understands that, to accept when I keep good feelings, I have loving feelings. That does 90% of the work in relationships. And so the wisdom of love is really the story of the spiritual path. When I have a loving relationship with myself as a soul, when I have a loving relationship with the divine, the supreme soul, a real living relationship, like my best friend, my lover, as I go about my life, a real relationship, not my imagination. When I'm full of love, how am I going to treat other people who come in touch with me? When you're live streaming that love, you're going to be much softer, much kinder, much more loving. And then how do you feel about yourself when you're kind and loving to people? You like who you are. If you're rude to people, disrespectful to people, how do you feel about yourself deep down if you're really honest? You don't really feel comfortable. When we behave according to our highest values, we feel comfortable about who we are. But when we behave against my truth, we don't feel comfortable about who we are. And I think that at this time, the most important thing is to give time to heal this relationship with myself. And you know, the main way is to experience God's love, to really allow yourself to feel that love. And when you feel loved, the healing process, the healing of the relationship with the self really begins. So maybe we can just have a few minutes of meditation. And once again, I'm going to speak out a few thoughts and we'll play some soft music. And if I can suggest, even if you're at home and maybe others around, if you can just really sit quietly and feel the atmosphere, because it will be conducive to having a spiritual experience. And to experience, the more I allow myself to let go the consciousness of my body, the more I let go the limited self and step into the unlimited permanent self, you step into the world of spiritual experience. The more you become detached from your temporary body and connect to your permanent self, your mind will fill with feelings of peace, feelings of lightness, feelings of realization, and feelings of love. The path of spirituality is the path to true love. True love is loving that which always exists. And that means I can never lose that love. Let me reflect on how I treat myself. Am I loving? Am I kind? Am I forgiving when I make a mistake? Am I honest? Or do I sometimes talk to myself in a very negative way? Put myself down. Tell myself you're hopeless. If I'm like that, It's really hard to experience who I am. So let me visualize the true self. Just hold the image of a spark of light sitting in the center of the forehead. And just feel how I sit in this huge body. And now feel yourself withdrawing, letting go, stepping back from all the labels of your body, and feel yourself as the tiny soul. Become lighter and lighter, and consciously have loving feelings for yourself. The more I realize that my original self, the original blueprint, is pure, is positive, is loving, and is peaceful, I can begin to love myself. I can begin to accept who I am. And with this sweet feeling of self-respect, I sit like a child in front of the divine, this beautiful radiant star of love, God the Supreme, an ocean of pure love. Don't allow your mind to wander, just gently remember the ocean of love and feel that sweet influence, a love that accepts me, a love that respects me, a love that always cares for me. And just feel this energy of love. Just feel your inner world cooling down, relaxing. The more I taste this love, I feel I have everything I need. I feel satisfied. Limited desires go. There is no sweeter feeling than this feeling of contentment, of feeling full. And only this divine love can do this completely. If each morning I wake and I sit in front of the divine like a child and fill with this love, just observe your thoughts and behavior throughout the day. The more I taste God's love, the more I can love myself. The more I love myself, the closer I come to God. The wisdom of love says, the more I remember the divine, the more love I experience in my life. There is no more beautiful life than a life filled with love. I remember the divine, and in every interaction, I express love. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlie. It's very beautiful. Don't feel like speaking. It was so beautiful. And the good thing about these talks is that you can listen to them over and over whenever you want. And we're not taking them off the YouTube, so you can listen to them every day so that it goes deeply within and becomes more real and real to you as you go over them again. And we have a morning class where we go over all the time the love we have for God, the love God has for us, and you can see how it's become Charlie's nature. So thank you all and keep loving. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Sally. Om Shanti.